Have you ever looked into your child's eyes and wondered, did I just hurt them without meaning to? It's a heavy question, one that sits quietly in the back of every parent's mind. Because no matter how much love we carry, no matter how much we try to protect them, there are moments when our words land harder than we expect. Our reactions cut deeper than we intend, and our silence speaks louder than love. And when we finally sit alone, replaying the day in our heads, the guilt whispers, why did I say that? Why did I do that? Parenthood is full of moments we don't talk about. The moments when stress wins, the moments when exhaustion makes us sharp, the moments when fear turns into anger, the moments when we forget that a child's heart is softer than it looks. Maybe it happened when you came home tired and snapped at your child for something small. Maybe it happened when they ran to you excited, but you were too distracted to notice. Maybe it happened when you raised your voice, not because they were wrong, but because life had already drained you. These tiny moments don't come from bad intentions. They come from the hidden pressure every parent carries. But here is the truth that many parents don't realize. Emotional wounds in children are often created accidentally, by parents who love them deeply. And that is why this topic matters, because behind every unintentional hurt there is a story. A story of a parent trying, a story of a child learning the world through the eyes of the person they trust most, a story of love that sometimes gets lost in translation. Imagine this for a moment. A parent rushes through the day, juggling responsibilities, carrying invisible burdens, thinking they are doing their best for the family. And somewhere in that rush, a small voice says, "Mom, can I show you something?" Or, "Dad, can you help me?" But the parent, overwhelmed and tired, responds with irritation, or shuts the conversation down without meaning to. The child walks away quietly. No tears, no words. But inside, something soft gets bruised. Not broken, not destroyed, just bruised. And the parent never meant for that to happen. Every parent has been there. You have been there. Because parenting is not just love. It is pressure, responsibility, and constant emotional labor. It is trying to stay strong even when you feel like falling apart. It is trying to be patient, even when life pushes you to the edge. And sometimes, without realizing it, that pressure leaks into the way you respond to your child. But here is where the curiosity begins. Why does this happen? Why do good parents, caring parents, devoted parents end up hurting their children emotionally without intention? What is happening inside our minds, our emotions, our patterns, that makes us react in ways we later regret? Why does stress make us say things we don't mean? Why does fear turn into anger? Why does love sometimes hide behind impatience? These are not questions of blame. These are questions of understanding. Because every parent carries their own childhood, their own wounds, their own unfinished stories. And sometimes, without knowing it, those old patterns come alive in the moments we least expect. This is why we need this conversation. Not to judge parents, but to free them. Not to point fingers, but to open eyes. Not to create guilt, but to create awareness. Because awareness is what transforms families. Awareness is what softens our reactions. Awareness is what turns automatic habits into intentional choices. As you listen to this message, let yourself breathe. Let yourself be honest. Let yourself be seen. Because this is not about perfection. This is about healing. This is about understanding the psychology behind why unintentional emotional hurt happens. And it is about learning how to break the patterns that no longer serve us or our children. Today, you will discover the invisible forces that shape your reactions. You will understand why emotional hurt happens even in loving homes. And you will learn how to create an environment where your child feels safe, valued, and emotionally understood. You are not alone in this journey. Every parent struggles. Every parent makes mistakes. Every parent has moments they wish they could rewrite. What matters is not the mistake. It is the awareness that follows. So let's walk into this with an open heart. Let's explore the deeper truth behind parenting. And let's begin the transformation that every parent deserves. To understand why parents accidentally hurt their children emotionally, we must look beyond the surface. Because it's not just about what you say or do, it's about the hidden forces inside you. Forces shaped by your past, your stress, your fears, and the patterns you learned long before you ever became a parent. Psychology teaches us that humans react before they reflect. When you snap, when you raise your voice, when you shut down, it's not because you are unloving. It's because your brain is operating on old emotional programs. These programs came from your own childhood, the environment you grew up in, and the behaviors you witnessed. You may not realize it, but when you face conflict with your child, your mind automatically brings up the reactions you learned years ago. Reactions that were never questioned. Reactions that became habits. Parents often think they're responding to the present moment, but in reality, they're responding to memories, to old fears, to old expectations, and your child becomes the mirror of emotions you haven't healed yet. When you get irritated over something small, it's rarely about your child's mistake. It's usually about your stress from the day, your fear of losing control, or your internal belief that everything must be perfect. The child only becomes the trigger, not the cause. Stress plays a huge role too. When your nervous system is overwhelmed, your brain shifts into survival mode. In this state, empathy becomes harder, patience becomes shorter, understanding becomes blurred. The brain starts taking shortcuts, using quick emotional reactions instead of thoughtful communication. That is why a tired parent reacts faster, louder or colder than a calm one. Not because they don't care, but because their mind is trying to protect itself from overload. And then comes the emotional expectations we place on children. Many parents were raised in environments where expressing feelings was seen as weakness or disrespect. So when a child cries, argues, or shows frustration, it triggers discomfort. The parent may feel they must fix the emotion, control it, or shut it down. But the child isn't trying to challenge the parent, they were trying to understand their own feelings. When a parent suppresses a child's emotion, it sends a message the parent didn't intend. Your feelings are too much. Your feelings are wrong. Another powerful psychological force is projection. When a parent fears failure, they become stricter. When a parent feels insecure, they become more controlling. When a parent feels invisible in their own life, they become more reactive when they feel ignored. Children unknowingly receive the emotional weight that was never meant for them. Not because parents want to hurt, but because they don't notice what they're carrying. And then there is the generational pattern. Many parents repeat the way they were raised, even if they promised themselves they would be different. You might hear your parents' words coming out of your own mouth. You might notice yourself reacting in ways you used to fear as a child. This is not intentional, it is psychological conditioning. The brain repeats what it knows. The brain copies what it learned. And unless you become aware of it, your childhood becomes your child's environment. One of the deepest psychological reasons unintentional hurt happens is that parents forget the emotional size difference. A parent's words are heavy. A child's heart is small. A raised voice can feel like rejection. A dismissive response can feel like abandonment. Children don't analyze your meaning. They absorb your tone. They absorb your energy. They absorb the emotion behind your actions. And yet, despite all of this, most emotional hurt in families comes from love. Parents worry. Parents want their children to succeed. Parents want to protect them from mistakes. But sometimes this protection comes out as pressure. Sometimes love comes out sounding like criticism. Sometimes fear comes out sounding like anger. The intention is love, but the impact becomes pain. This is the gap every parent must understand. The difference between intention and impact. You may intend to help, but the impact might feel hurtful. You may intend to guide, but the impact may feel controlling. You may intend to correct, but the impact may feel like rejection. Once you understand this gap, you begin to see why emotional misunderstandings are so common between parents and children. And perhaps the most powerful psychological truth of all is this. Children don't need perfect parents. They need aware parents. They need parents who recognize their own emotional patterns. They need parents who know when they are projecting old wounds. They need parents who pause, breathe, and choose love consciously, not automatically. The purpose of understanding this psychology is not to create guilt, but to create clarity. Because with clarity comes change. With awareness comes new choices. With understanding comes healing, both for you and for your child. Now it is time for the breakthrough, the moment when everything becomes clearer. Because the truth is this, most emotional wounds between parents and children are not created by bad parents. They are created by unconscious patterns. And once you see these patterns, you can change them forever. Every parent carries a story shaped by the home they grew up in, a story shaped by the moments that made them strong and the moments that made them afraid. And without awareness, that story repeats itself through reactions, tone, and expectations. But here is the insight that frees you. Your past does not have to become your child's future. You can break the cycle. You can rewrite the emotional language of your family. To do that, you must understand something powerful. Children do not need parents who never make mistakes. They need parents who can recognize their mistakes, repair them, and grow from them. Emotional healing in families does not come from perfection. It comes from connection. It comes from moments when you look at your child and say through your actions, "You matter to me. Your feelings matter, I see you." And here is the deeper shift that changes everything. Instead of seeing your child's reactions as misbehavior, start seeing them as communication. A child who shouts is a child overwhelmed. A child who withdraws is a child protecting their heart. A child who cries is a child asking for connection. When you change the way you interpret their emotions, your response naturally becomes softer. You begin to guide with understanding instead of frustration. You begin to teach with calm instead of fear. You begin to raise a child who feels emotionally safe, not emotionally judged. Another powerful reframe is this: your emotional reactions are not signs of failure. They are signals that something inside you needs attention. When you feel anger rising fast, it is usually hiding fear. Fear of losing control. Fear of not being respected. Fear that you are not doing enough. When you feel irritation, it often hides exhaustion. When you shut down emotionally, it often hides overwhelm. Once you understand the emotion beneath the emotion, you can respond to your child with clarity instead of confusion. This is where transformation begins. Because the moment a parent slows down and asks themselves, "What am I really feeling? What does my child really need right now?" everything becomes softer. The home becomes calmer. The connection becomes stronger. Your child begins to trust that your love is not unpredictable, not conditional, not frightening. They begin to feel safe opening their heart to you. And here is the metaphor that every parent should carry. Think of your child's emotions like a small flame. Too much wind will blow it out. Too little air will suffocate it. But the right balance helps it grow into a warm, steady light. Your reactions are that wind. Your presence is that air. Your awareness is what keeps the flame alive. When you begin to respond with emotional intelligence, you are no longer just raising a child. You are raising a future adult who understands themselves, who trusts others, who communicates with honesty, and who carries emotional strength instead of hidden wounds. This is the power of an aware parent. This is how generational cycles change. This is how families heal. This is how your home becomes a place where hearts grow, not shrink. You do not have to be perfect to give your child emotional safety. You just need to be present, aware, and willing to grow. That willingness alone is enough to transform your parenting and your child's emotional world. This is the moment where everything comes together. The moment you stand as a parent, not defined by the mistakes behind you, but empowered by the awareness within you. Because now you understand what many parents never get the chance to learn. Emotional hurt in families is not destiny. It is not permanent. It is not the end of the story. It is simply a signal inviting you to grow into the parent you were always capable of becoming. You do not need to wait for the perfect day, the perfect mood, or the perfect situation to change. You can begin right now. In the smallest moments, the quiet moments, the moments when your child looks at you with those eyes that still believe in your love, even when you fall short. Every day gives you a chance to repair, reconnect, and rebuild. Every day gives you the opportunity to choose awareness over automatic reactions, understanding over frustration, presence over distraction. Your child does not need grand speeches. They need small, consistent acts of emotional safety. A softer tone, a longer pause, a deeper breath before responding, a willingness to kneel down, to listen, to say, "I'm here with you." These simple actions create a foundation that lasts a lifetime. Because children remember the feeling of being understood far longer than they remember the details of any moment. And this is your call to rise. Not as a perfect parent, but as a growing one. Not as someone who never gets overwhelmed, but as someone who learns to pause and see the situation with clarity. Every time you choose calm over chaos, your child learns emotional regulation. Every time you choose empathy over anger, your child learns compassion. Every time you choose connection over control, your child learns trust. You are shaping a human heart. You are shaping a future adult. Your influence is not small, it is powerful. Let this be the turning point, where you no longer judge yourself for past reactions. Instead, let this be the moment you use them as motivation. The moment you decide that your love will speak louder than your stress. The moment you understand that awareness is your greatest parenting tool, because the more aware you are, the more intentional you become, and the more intentional you become, the safer your child feels. And remember this, your child does not need a perfect parent. They need a parent who keeps showing up, a parent who apologizes when needed, a parent who explains, who listens, who grows, a parent who teaches through example. That emotional strength comes from humility, courage, and love. When you model growth, your child learns that it is okay to grow. When you model healing, your child learns that it is okay to heal. So as you walk forward from this moment, carry this message in your heart. You are enough, you are capable, you are learning, and your awareness today is already changing your family's future. Let yourself believe that you can break the patterns that once controlled you. Let yourself believe that you can create an environment where your child's heart feels safe to open. Safe to express, safe to be their true self. Stand tall as a parent who chooses understanding, a parent who chooses compassion, a parent who chooses emotional courage even when it isn't easy. Because the home you build with intention will become the foundation your child stands on for the rest of their life. This is your moment to rise, your moment to lead with love, your moment to shape not just behavior, but a heart. And when your child looks back years from now, they will remember not your mistakes, but the way you kept trying, the way you kept loving, the way you kept growing. You are not just raising a child. You are raising a future filled with emotional safety, connection, and strength. And it starts with you. It starts now.